Certainly want to thank every one of you that are here today. I know that we have families that are watching online today that could not be with us, even with the dedication, the baby dedication, to pray for them. I want to thank you, for being here. And as Stacy said, this is, as a church, you realize you have certain Sundays of the year that are very important Sundays, and this is one of those because, we want to feature, we want to ask you to be in prayer for our families, but it also just kind of gives the opportunity, the reflection, to look upon ourselves as the church and to try to realize that even as the church, as aunts and uncles and grandparents that are here, that we as the church are able to give wisdom and strength, help. We are ready with our hands, we're ready with our feet to be able to move. We are there to encourage. We are there to support. We are there to listen to these families, to all of our families. Because we have to realize our priority is the mission of Jesus Christ that He's given to each and every one of us. And when I see, and I know that is the whole mindset of our children's ministry, when they see all of these children, we see all of these families, our minds go to the reality, look what God is doing. We have to realize that sometimes we have to look beyond what we see in a family, what we see in the life of a child, what we see, what we experience. There could be a greater story that's being told by God, and we have to cooperate with God to see and to make sure that what we do, where we are, and how we encourage makes a difference in that life. I want to start with a story that I've read multiple times here at Carterville, and one that impacts me, that I take out quite often, especially when I was in youth ministry. To take out and to read, and I think it has a lot to say today about us really looking beyond what we see in someone's life and to be able to look and to see what God may be doing in their life. The story is written, and the author says, I know a school teacher by the name of Miss Thompson. Every year when she met her new students, she would say, boys and girls, I love you all the same, and I have no favorites. But of course, she wasn't being completely truthful. Teachers do have favorites. And what is worse, most teachers have students that they just don't like. Teddy Stollard was a boy Miss Thompson just didn't like, and for good reason. He just didn't seem interested in school. There was a deadpan blank expression on his face, and his eyes had a glassy, unfocused appearance. And when she spoke to Teddy, he always answered in monosyllables. His clothes were musty, his hair was unkempt. He wasn't an attractive boy, and he certainly wasn't likable. Whenever she marked Teddy's papers, she got a certain perverse pleasure out of putting X's next to the wrong answers. And when she put the F at the top of his papers, she always did it with a flair. She should have known better. She had Teddy's records, and she knew more about him than she wanted to admit. The records read like this: first grade, Teddy shows promise with his work and his attitude, but a poor home situation. Second grade, Teddy could do better. Mother is seriously ill. He receives little help at home. Third grade, Teddy is a good boy, but too serious. He is a slow learner, and his mother died this past year. Fourth grade, Teddy is very slow, but he's well behaved. His father shows no interest. Christmas came as every year, and the boys and girls in Miss Thompson's class brought her Christmas presents, and they piled their presents on her desk and crowded around to watch her open them. Among the presents, there was one from Teddy Stollard. She was surprised that he had brought her a gift, but he had. Teddy's gift was wrapped in brown paper and was held together with Scotch tape, and on the paper were written in simple words, "For Miss Thompson, from Teddy." When she opened Teddy's present, out fell a gaudy rhinestone bracelet with half the stones missing and a bottle of cheap perfume. The other boys and girls began to giggle and smirk over Teddy's gifts, but Miss Thompson at least had enough sense to silence them by immediately putting on the bracelet and putting some of the perfume on her wrist. Holding her wrist up for the other children to smell, she said, "Oh, doesn't it smell lovely?" And the children, taking their cue from their teacher, readily agreed with oohs and ahs. At the end of the day, when school was over and the other children had left, Teddy lingered behind. He slowly came over to her desk and he said softly, Miss Thompson, you smell just like my mother. And her bracelet looks really pretty on you too. I'm glad you like my presence. When Teddy left, Miss Thompson got down on her knees and she thanked God and asked him to forgive her. The next session after Christmas, when school started back up, the children came back and they were welcomed by a new teacher. Miss Thompson had become a different person. She was no longer just a teacher. She had become an agent of God. She was now a person committed to loving her children and to doing things for them that would live long after her. She helped all the children, but especially the slow ones, and especially Teddy Stollard. By the end of that school year, Teddy showed a dramatic improvement. He had caught up with most of the students and was even ahead of a few. She didn't hear from Teddy for a long time. Then one day she received a note that read, Dear Miss Thompson, I wanted you to be the first to know I'll be graduating second in my class. Love, Teddy Stollard. 4 years later, another note came. It said, Dear Miss Thompson, they just told me I'll be graduating first in my class. I wanted you to be the first to know. The university has not been easy, but I liked it. Love, Teddy Stollard. And 4 years later, Dear Miss Thompson, as of today, I am Theodore Stollard, MD. How about that? I wanted you to be the first to know I'm getting married next month, the 27th to be exact, and I want you to come and sit where my mother would have sat if she were alive. You're the only family I have now. Dad died last year. Love, Teddy Stollard. The report says that Miss Thompson went to that wedding. She sat where Teddy's mother would have been seated. She deserved to sit there. She had done something for Teddy that he could never, ever forget. As a matter of fact, in her old age, she lived with Dr. Stollard. And at that wedding, she wore that rhinestone bracelet and the perfume that Teddy had given her so many years earlier. You see, church, that is what we are to be. We are to look beyond what we see in the lives of people, and especially the lives of children, the troubled lives of people. We are to be the agents of love and grace to a world that lives in darkness, to a world that is lost to the grace and to the message and to the hope of Jesus Christ. We are to be the agents of love and of grace. We are to be the messengers of the hope of eternal salvation that only comes not from anything in this world, but through Jesus Christ. Family teaches us a lot, doesn't it? The church ought to teach us a lot. I learned a lot from my family. You know, for me, fortunately, I feel blessed as we talk about being blessings and being a family of blessings. I grew up in a family that loved God. He was number one priority in our family, but my mother taught me a lot of things. My mother taught me logic. She said this to me, and maybe you've heard it before. If you fall off that swing, out of that tree, off the top of that house, barn, shed, or whatever you're up on right now, and you break your neck, I'm not taking you to the doctor. She also told me about that, about my leg, my arm, and any cut that I had that would need stitches. And I spent a lot of time at the hospital. My dad always took me. She taught me about medicine and science. She said, if you don't stop crossing your eyes, you're going to get stuck that way for the rest of your life. They didn't. And I cross them once a day just to check her out. So if you ever see me with my eyes crossed, you're going, it happened. Your mom was right. She taught me to think ahead. She said, if you don't pass that spelling test, you'll never get a good job. Fooled her. She taught me how to meet a challenge, which to me is a little bit like logic that I first mentioned. She would always ask me, what were you thinking? That was a challenge for me. My wife still asks me that. Then she would answer me back with, "Don't you talk back to me." So I didn't know what to do. She taught me about humor. She said, "When that lawnmower cuts off your toes, don't you come running to me." So I always thought that was funny, and a few times over the years, I would come running in with ketchup all over my toes. She taught me how to become an adult. If you don't eat your vegetables, you'll never grow up. And I thanked her continually for the 5'8" that I got to for eating all those Brussels sprouts. Spinach, collard greens, every repulsive vegetable she could come up with, she made me eat. I had to eat liver and onions. There's a special place in heaven for my mom. Probably next to Jesus, and they're making fun of me the whole time. "You really made him eat liver and onions, huh? You did a bigger miracle than I did." So, genetics, she taught me about genetics. She said, "You're just like your father." She taught me about my roots, a lot like genetics. "Do you think you were born in a barn?" And she also taught me about construction. She said, "You make a better door than you do a window." So, anticipation, she taught me anticipation. She said these words over and over: "You just wait till your father gets home." Then she taught me about receiving. She says, "You're going to get it when we get home." So I had both of those to look forward to. And then the big one. You've heard that before, didn't you, Scotty? You heard that one. Here's the big one. I know Scotty Hedinger's heard. One day you'll have kids. And I hope they turn out just like you. I had 7 of them, and they all turned out just like me. You know, family is so important, and marriage is so important. I want to talk about that here in just a few minutes, and how we look at family. Whether we are husbands and wives here, or grandparents and aunts and uncles, whether we're married or not, we're part of a family. We're part of the house and the church of God. You know, I told Charlie this week, I asked Virgil one morning. Virgil and I we can't wait to get back to where we can go to the Carterville school down here and be able to wave and high five kids coming into school. It meant so much to us. And we had a little lull one day, and we've been doing this for quite a few years, and we are always telling stories. And I just said, "Virg, how did you and Linda make it so long? I mean, with 2 boys like Charlie and Chris, how did you find success in your marriage?" Virgil said it was easy. He said once we got started, once we first got married, we decided that 2 nights a week would be nights that we would go out to eat, nice restaurants. Money was not the problem. We were going to go out and eat. And I just looked at him and said, "Wow." And he goes, "Yeah, my night's Tuesday and Linda's night's Friday." So, we found success doing that. I don't care how you have to do it. We've got to work on family today, because all I hear about, and I've heard about it since I can remember being in church all those years of the past, that we've got a problem with our families today. Our families are in trouble. Well, we've been in trouble since Genesis, the 4th chapter. And I don't know if we're really serious enough about working on what we're doing. But I want us to go to Psalms 127. I want to read it today for you. Out of the Message is where I want to read it. So I'm going to look it up. We're going to put it up here on the board for you, but sometimes I don't see that far away. And it says this is the Message. It says, "If God doesn't build the house, the builders only build shacks." And I use that in every marriage ceremony that I do. I mention that if God is not building your marriage, if God is not a part of what is going on in your marriage, it will eventually have hard times that probably will fall apart. Because God has got to be the center of everything we do. It is the center of what is being planned for these babies right now as they grow. These workers, Stacy and her crew, are putting together programs and outlines and hope and ways that you as a family, no matter what's going on in this world, can be able to put into your children. God has got to be the center. He goes on to say, if God doesn't guard the city, the night watchman might as well nap. If God is not guarding your family, if you're not living, as she says, what's the next step of discipleship? If God is not taking care of your family right now, if you are not being obedient to Him and letting Him lead your lives, you might as well just take it off. The world is going to come at you. The worldview is going to come at your children. And you're not going to have an answer when they want to walk in the door and they begin to describe what they're learning goes totally against what you know is real and true. The writer goes on and says, it's useless to rise early and go to bed late and work your worried fingers to the bone. Don't you know He, referring to God, enjoys giving rest to those He loves? God is saying, people, there's something more important in this world than you making money. There's something more important than you stressing out about how you're going to retire. There's something more important, and he's saying it's family. It's God in the middle of your family. Goes on in verses 3 through 5, don't you see that children are God's best gift? The fruit of the womb, his generous legacy. Don't you see that? Like a warrior's fistful of arrows are the children of a vigorous youth. Oh, how blessed are you parents. I'll repeat that. Oh, how blessed are you parents with your quivers full of children. Your enemies don't stand a chance against you. And you'll sweep them right off your doorstep. I know that's true. I could take all 7 of our kids and now the whole family of like close to 28, 28, 30 of us. If I take them somewhere, nobody bothers me. I can say whatever I want to say, and I just start gathering grandchildren around me and go, yeah? Get through them. Now, I got one that's biting me back behind me, but the rest of them are on my side. You know, what do? So I want to suggest a few things here this morning that I believe, first of all, that can ruin a family, but yet then some things that we need as a church and we need as the family of God that we need to get behind, fully behind. 4 things, very quickly, that I believe that can ruin a family. Number 1, hold on to unrealistic views. If you are starting out or you're a family, you still have these unrealistic views that everything ought to turn up roses in your life, that everything ought to be easy in your life, or that you're going to live your life to make everything easy for your children, you're going to be upset all the time. I mean, it was one of those things that the reason why, and we talked about this all weekend long, Jamie and I, one of the reasons we wanted our children to be involved in sports so they could learn how to lose. Now, I remember when Cassidy, freshman year of high school, playing in the state championship, they lost in the last inning. And she came over, and I know, I've been there. I've felt what you felt. We had it won. Luckily, they didn't hit the ball to Cassidy, but we had it won. She came over, and the lesson learned was, I'm so glad. My heart is broken, but I'm so glad you taught me there's more to life than losing a softball game. We wanted them to learn how to face the obstacles of life and that life is not always going to be easy for them. Life is going to be hard. They learned, both of our families being blended together, they learned how to grow without a mother. They learned how to grow when you don't know what tomorrow will be because of the separation of your family. They learned that life is not going to be easy. So first of all, if you want to ruin your family, just have some unrealistic views of what family and what life is going to be like. Second of all, refuse to make adjustments in your family. Refuse to make adjustments. One of the things that I talk again to young couples about as they're getting married is expectations. Expectations. What do you expect? And I go, really, out of all the things we're going to talk about, maybe this is the most important thing. So their assignment for the week or the 2 weeks, go home, use this piece of paper, write on the back of the paper, write down all your expectations. I don't care if it's the whole page full. I don't care if you have to go get another, a tablet and you start filling them out. We're going to be here a little while, but let's put down your expectations. Because what I see so often is about a year into a marriage, we're doing marriage counseling because somebody goes, a guy or a wife will say, he never told me that. So I give them the chance. Before we get married, go ahead and tell them right now, what do you expect? And then after they share those things, I said, okay, here's something I want you to expect. Those are all going to have to change someday. Those are all going to have to change someday. Because right in the middle of all this stuff you're doing, you're going to bring another human being right into the group and everything changes. Everything changes. Be willing to adjust. Third of all, don't deal with conflicts constructively. Don't deal with conflicts constructively. If you yell at your children, shout, scream when things don't go your way, stop. Stop it. This is not about you anymore. This is about us. And really the blessings, what we read there, these children, It is about God in your family, God using the moment, I just want to stop for a second and bring up something. You know, and I know it, a couple of my brother-in-laws were amazed. I may not have a lot of patience in some areas of my life, but I do have patience to the fact children drop things all the time. Because I drop things all the time. In a restaurant, when your 3-year-old drops a glass of water, milk, pop, whatever, don't yell, okay? Don't yell. Just remember, you dropped it last week. Deal with things constructively. Deal with the things that we do wrong constructively. That's why we always told our kids, we're not going to punish you, we're going to discipline you. Because we tried to cover about everything we could possibly cover before we got married and brought this family in together. Here's all the things that we're going to do in raising a family. We're going to realize at 5 years old, you're not smart enough to decide who you are. You don't know who you are. So we're going to tell you who you are. You're a child of God, you're a member of this family, and how you live will reflect both on both of those situations. We're going to ask you to reflect good and glory to God and to your family. Now, when you're 17, you still don't know a lot, but we're going to let you make your own decision. And so we had rules. We had a lot of rules. We did. We had a lot of rules. We talk about those. At times, we get the opportunity to talk to people. You know, we majored on the majors and we minored on the minors. We majored in the fact that you respect and you are going to follow Jesus Christ with your life. Now, when you're an adult, you can decide to do what you want to do. But in our house, God is number one. And we will bring glory to God. And so we tried to deal with them constructively, lead them constructively, teach them God. Fourth of all, you're in a family when you're critical and you find faults all the time. You know, I know a lot of parents do, and I don't care what you do, but I never thought of it until it was too late. We filmed a lot of softball, baseball, football, basketball, track, piano concerts, two things. First of all, just to tell you about our family. They all had to learn to play a sport. They didn't have to be good at it, but we wanted to learn how to play a sport, so they learned how to get along with other people and learned how to lose. They learned how to get along with people and learn how to lose. They had to learn to play an instrument. Learn to play an instrument because we want to learn the discipline of learning a gift and an art of God. Some of them also took that on to do big things with the instruments. They also had to learn to draw. You're going, oh, Robin, you made them learn to, yes. Because I believe that being able to express your artistic ability that God has given to each one of us, creative ability, is something very important. We didn't ask them to be good, we asked them to draw. But see, in that right there, we were never critical. And when we did have to lead, we taught them this is not punishment, it is discipline for your life. So what are the three things, as I close with this morning, that I truly believe that the church and as parents we need to do? The first one is this right here. We need radical selflessness. Radical selflessness. We need to understand, grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles, church, we need to strive in our lives for humility and servanthood. That doesn't mean, now we have a problem in the world and the church today. So let me just state this right now. I'm not saying that we worship children. We have a problem with children worship in our world today. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we realize that God has blessed us with the opportunity to mold lives and to change the lives of the people that He has given us. We have a blessing to bless other people. And so our selflessness into our children, to show them, I'm not talking about with them, I'm talking about with the rest of the world, our humility to serve other people, to look around and have them help with our neighbors and with people at church, to get them involved at church. All of our kids, they knew this. Here's a rule. You'll go on a mission trip. You will all go on a mission trip. I remember the day that Jamie and I stood in the Tulsa airport and we sent, Jeremiah was already down there in Honduras and we said goodbye. Jeremiah was there. He went down to blaze the trail and we sent the two boys down there for a mission trip for 2 weeks. They had no sponsors. They had, nobody else with them. We put them on the plane and Jamie cried. And I said, you should cry for Honduras. That's right, honey. Because what if they miss a gate? Well, then pray for whatever country they end up in. Because they're there for 2 weeks. I'm not going to get them. That kind of put the fear of God into them that when they needed to make sure they got to Honduras. Somebody was expecting them in Honduras. They had to go on mission trips. We wanted them to learn selflessness, to care about other people. So let me say this right now. Parents, you new parents, church, you're raising your children to enter into the greatest mission field that the world has ever seen. Yes, you're raising your children to be missionaries in our public school system. You should be raising this child right now to think that when they start kindergarten, they're going to make a difference. That when they get into first grade, they're going to make a difference. You need to raise your children that they're willing to serve and to do for other people their assignments so that when they come to that time and they're doing that draft thing that you don't think they do, pulling out kids that they want in their class, they're all fighting over your kid. Not because they make straight A's, because they know that child's going to make a difference in my class. That's where we ought to be raising our children. That's the type of children we ought to be raising, that they stand and they look over the city and they say, for the hope of the gospel, I have to do this. In the hope of the gospel, I have to do this. That's the kind of children I want you to raise, to send to moves and mix, to camps, not trips. It starts with us being radically selfless. Second of all, we need radical convictions. Radical convictions. Let me just ask you right now, what do you believe about the Bible? What do you believe about the Bible? Is this the Word of God to you? Do you believe that this is the Word of God? If you don't believe it, your children won't believe it. Do you believe that this is in the inerrant Word of God? This, and I heard Stacy say this last week to these young parents, when you have problems, you have issues, you have conflicts in your life, you have victories in your life, you can find it all right here. Do you believe that? You may have to search for it. There's some days when I'm going through conflicts, I open up the Word and there's the answer right there. You go, thank you, God. And there's some days He says, buddy, you better get in and study. You better get in and apply. You better get in and memorize. You better get in here. Because I'm going to guard you. But to guard you, you need to be ready to stand up and to fight because we're in a battle, we're in a war. What do you believe about the Word of God? And right now, there are churches across our country that are teaching this is not the inerrant Word of God. We don't need this anymore. They're teaching that. And as long as I'm alive and wherever I teach, you will never hear that come out of my mouth. This is the Word of God, the sword that we rightly divide. The Word, we rightly divide life with this Word right here. Do you teach your children that? What do you believe about Jesus Christ? What do you believe about Jesus? I oftentimes meet people, get to talk to people, they tell me, I don't believe in God. I go, man, that's all right. We'll just start right there. You know what? There have been days in my life I didn't believe in God. I mean, there have been tragedies in my life, things happened in my life. I've been mad at God. I lost my wife. When I lost my wife, I looked at God and said, I don't like you anymore. This is a ripoff. Where are you at? What have you done? How are you helping me right now? Oh, I've been mad at God. Oh, let me get with you. Why are you mad at God? I said, but there's only one problem. I got that resurrection thing over here. It just keeps giving me problems. Jesus came back from the dead. Oh, man, if Jesus came back from the dead, who's who He said He was? He is God in the flesh. So no matter how mad, upset, what I want my way, if that's true, that changes everything. What do you believe about that? What do you believe about sexuality in today's world? What do you believe? What do you believe? Are you going to teach your children? I know what the world says, honey. I know what your science teacher is going to say, honey. I know what the college class is going to say, honey. But we need to understand that God created a male and female. He created them one for the other, not multiple partners. What do you believe about that? I mean, as I said, my children get to make their own decisions. I oftentimes don't like their decisions. But I'm going to stand on that. And they know that. And they know I love them. But as long as I'm alive, that's where I'm going to stand. What are your convictions? What are your convictions? I remember a story that Tom Mall told one time. Tom spoke here for us many years ago, his freshman year in high school at the Coleraine High School in Cincinnati, Ohio. He said that for homecoming football that year, he was freshman. What they did back then was they had this assembly of the high school, and each class got to nominate a young lady to be the homecoming queen. And he said they started with the seniors all the way down to the freshmen. And when they got to the freshmen, somebody nominated this young lady. And everybody else seconded it, and they were waiting for other nominations. And it said the young lady got up. She went down to the president of the senior class who was leading it, said that she talked to him for a second, and he backed away from the microphone, and she stepped up there and she said, I want to ask you to take my name off of the ballot. It's not that I'm holier than thou or anything than that. I appreciate it so much, but I understand that the homecoming queen and her court, they go to the dance afterwards and they're going to dance. And she said, I'm just too young. I'm not going to go do that. And so please take my name off of the ballot. Well, somebody from the freshman class, he said, nope, that's it. We want her. And he said they were probably just trying to test her. He said, sure enough, the next week, the football game, they do all the football stuff. And at halftime is when they announced, the homecoming queen, dirty football players there. He said for the first time in the history of that school, 75 years, homecoming queen, that was the first time ever that it was not a senior. You guessed it. They elected that freshman girl homecoming queen of the Colerain High School. The football game got started. She got up. And everybody's watching her. They're taking all the pictures. She walks up into the crowd. She speaks to her mother and father. And her mother and father get up and leave. She goes back down and sits there and she watches the game. He said, people really didn't care. He says, I don't remember the game. I don't know what happened to the game. But he said, just with a few minutes left in the game, she got back up once again. She walked all the way back up to the PA box up there, spoke to them and came back down. And he said, with just a few seconds left in the game, the announcer said, ladies and gentlemen, our homecoming queen tonight has made an announcement. She will not be going to the homecoming dance tonight. But she's invited all of you to come over to her house for cookies and Kool-Aid. Cookies and Kool-Aid. Man, we quit giving away cookies and Kool-Aid a long time ago in youth group. I mean, you give away a horse, a car, a computer, something. You give something cool. Cookies and Kool-Aid. You could say she was a flop that night. Over 100 kids went to the homecoming dance. And only 750 went to her house for cookies and Kool-Aid. So why don't we teach our children conviction like that? I appreciate it. I love it when our kids, and Stacey's going to talk about it here again. I love it when our kids from Carterville Christian Church are the ones that are on the stage, the ones where the pictures are being taken. They're the captains of the teams, and they're the drum majors, and they're all these things. I love it. But let's teach them to do that with conviction. Last of all, we've got to be radically involved. Let me put it this way, radically invested in our child's life. Radically invested. Let me just say this. Moms, new moms, your job is not to be a taxi driver for your kid. Now, you're going to have to take your kid everywhere they want to go. Right? Okay? I always say this. When you got them in the little carrier, enjoy life. Take them everywhere you want to go. Because in 16 years, you're going to go everywhere they want to go. So I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying it's more of an investment into their lives. Our kids got tired of one phrase, two phrases. They were tired of the name Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey is why we went to Roaring River twice a year. And the other one was, this is a teachable moment. Well, I would sit on the edge of the bed, make them sit on the floor. This is going to be a teachable moment. You don't talk to your mother that way. I don't talk to your mother that way. You don't talk to your mother that way. That's investment. You can impress your children, and I can impress you from far away. But if I want to impact your life, if I want to impact my child's life, I have to get close. I have to get close. I have to invest in them. I have to know them. I have to sense what's going on in their lives so that when they walk in the door, I can ask better questions than how was school today? Because school has been the same for 60 plus years that I know of. What'd you do today in school? They haven't done anything in school for 80 years. I'll say it. Webb City, Missouri's never taught a kid anything. Just ask them. What'd you learn in school today? Nothing. Get close. to your child, so that when they walk in the door, you know what's going on. Get close to impact them with the gospel of Jesus. Church, our job is to get close to these children and these families. So I want to ask you that if you didn't get a name off of there, I got Brody. You got to love Brody, right? He's the kid with the donuts. I got Brody. He's on my prayer list because that boy's going to go somewhere. And I'll make sure of it because I'm bringing that boy donuts. Start praying for these families. Start praying for these families. And marriages in the room right now. Marriage is watching. Let me say this to you. We're going to stop. We're going to pray here. What I'm going to ask you, maybe in your marriage you realize I've not treated my wife, I've not treated my husband the way I should. And so I want to remind you dads, I want to remind you husbands and mothers, how you talk to each other is how your child, how your son and your daughter is going to talk to their wife or their husband. So can you imagine men that you've talked to your wife very bad and your son gets married someday and they get back from the honeymoon and he starts talking to her the way you talk to his mom? She's going to be shocked. Mothers think the same way. If your daughter, if you talk to your husband, her father that way, how you talk to him, that's how she's going to talk to that husband someday. Think about it. How we honor each other in our marriages, that's how they're going to honor each other in their marriage. So we need to be praying today for our families right here at Carterville, the family of Carterville. And then we pray for these and so many others. If you need a list, you just call the office. We can get you this list. We can get you a list of, if you want first grade parents, second grade parents, you want the list of junior high parents. They really need prayer. We want you to pray. And I want you to start now. But maybe this morning, as we close, you need prayer. There are going to be people at the back of the room to pray with you. Maybe you need prayer. Maybe you have never given your life to Jesus Christ. You've never fulfilled what Jesus has asked us to do, and today is the time. So we're going to stand. We have everything ready for you. If you want to be baptized today, everything is ready to go. All I ask you is let's move to the back for prayer, to the front for baptism, whatever. As we stand, you come this morning, please.